Hey, welcome back to the Soul Pod. Another good episode, hopefully. This one's a meaty one. This is Stacy. If you haven't checked out the Soul Podcast yet, use the links below. Go check that out. Topics like this are covered there in much greater detail. This topic, in fact, is covered in much greater detail, but I wanted to do a quick video on it because it affects everyone. It affects everyone at one point or another, and it's huge work. It's huge work to do when you dive into it, and it's not easy work. But it's work that I've done myself and that I have worked through some big stuff with this, really big stuff. And so I know that it can be incredibly helpful. The topic for today is forgiveness. And specifically, do you forgive or not forgive? And I'm going to try to convince you that to forgive is better, and not for them or for some wonderful altruistic thing to do, but for yourself. And I'm gonna actually give you some tools to put in your personal growth toolbox. It's going to be useful. Lewis B. Smedes, the guy who wrote this book, great book by the way, To Forgive and Forget. Uh, Lewis B. Smedes said, "To forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover that the prisoner was you." I like this quote a lot because it's so true. And if you haven't done a big forgiveness before and felt that sensation of understanding that you are holding yourself prisoner, it's hard to understand that quote, maybe. Maybe in theory it is, but like so many other things, it's like talking about the Grand Canyon. I heard about the Grand Canyon for forever, of course. When I finally saw it, I was in my 40s. And, all the pictures, all the stories, all the everything could not compare to actually experiencing it in person. It's the same thing with forgiveness, the sensation you get from understanding that, when you forgive, you really are releasing yourself. It's a very different thing. So I want to start by saying that, in looking into this, you'll find that the concept of forgiveness is an ancient practice. It goes back thousands of years, probably better than 3,000 years, at least as old as the written word. It goes, you get to the oldest written word and you find stuff. They're talking about love and the soul and family and, universals like the sky and the wind and rain. And they talk about forgiveness, which is incredible. The Bible mentions forgiveness 127 times. That may not surprise you because that was a big part of what Jesus talked about, was forgiveness. Other traditions, philosophies, and religions dive into this in a big way. The Stoics talked about it an awful lot. In the Buddhist tradition, Buddha was said to have said, holding on to anger is like grasping hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone. You are the one who gets burned. And it's true. It's true. The thing about anger is this: uh, forgiveness, it's challenging because what happens is, to take care of ourselves when we're hurt, we do that thing where we go to anger, because anger, it gives us a ledge to stand on. Because if we just stay in that victim thing, like that painful, terrible feeling we got when we were abused or hurt in some way or treated terribly, there's no ground there. It's just quicksand. So we have to find somewhere to stand steady. So we go to anger, and anger is a great solid place to stand. We get our bearings, that fight or flight, right? But anger, usually we back that up by letting hate slip in. It sort of fortifies our position. I hate that. I hate, and what happens is we create a caricature of the person that did the thing to us, where now we hate them, and they're not a person anymore. They're that thing. They're that thing they did. And in a way, this is healthy because it keeps us from completely collapsing. It can really solidify us enough that we can move forward, right? Especially with the really bad, painful stuff, really horrible stuff. This works for any level of betrayal. It can be the littlest thing, like someone, screwed you out of a job at work, to something much more horrific, the worst things you could possibly imagine. It's all the same. The reaction is the same, it's just in degrees, right? So what happens is we go to anger and we go to hate. But the thing to remember is, well, hate's a choice. Hate's a choice. And Hate's not about them, hate's about us. And to get forward, we have to let go of it. I can help you do that. I've got a tool. I want to explain that a little deeper though. Okay. When you love someone and you tell them, I love you, what are you saying? You're telling them about you. You're telling them, I love you. It's not about them. You're telling them about you. And when you say, I hate you, it's the same thing. You're telling them about you. You're choosing an emotion. Even if you tell them about it, even if they may have caused it or triggered it, it's your emotion and you own it. It's yours. You're choosing hate. So, did they earn it? Maybe. Who's to say? But does it serve you? Let me explain what I mean by that. I know this is a complicated subject, so I'm going to go into a little bit of detail here because it's important to understand. With hate, why are you hateful? Are you waiting for an apology? Are you waiting for them to make it right? Are you waiting for it to be okay? What would change your hate? If they apologize, would it change it? Let me ask you this. If they apologized for the thing they did, whatever it was, would it change the fact that that happened and it's part of your life now? It's part of your life story. Will it make it disappear? Will it make it go away? Will it have never existed? Of course not. Of course not. So, does the hate serve you? It doesn't. It only holds you back. It's that hot coal that you're clutching with the intent of throwing it at someone, and you're the one getting burned. So let's get rid of it. I've done this work. I've done this work with some bad stuff, and it works. I had a problem with the word forgive, particularly because usually the people that hurt us don't ask for forgiveness. Some of them don't deserve it, maybe. I don't know. That's your call. But unfortunately, it seems like the majority of people who hurt others have no knowledge they did it or have no care that they did it. So waiting around for an apology, as we've determined, wouldn't help you anyway, even if it came, but it probably won't come. So why carry around this suitcase full of hot coals, right? So what I learned to do was use one nice little tool to get me to forgiveness, because forgiveness was a hard word for me. I don't know if it's the same for you, but for me, it's like, why should I forgive? They haven't asked for forgiveness. I get on my self-righteous pedestal, but it's a hard thing to break, right? So this is the tool that I use. The tool that I use is empathy. Empathy. And I'll explain how this works. See, the problem is we've created that caricature, right? We created that caricature of they're no longer a person. They're a beast or an asshole or a dickhead or a jerk or the thing they did. They're the thing they did, right? We've taken the humanity away from them because they don't deserve it in our minds, maybe. I'm going to illustrate this with a story. I share this in the podcast too in more detail. That when I was in 7th, 8th grade, there was this kid named Danny who was just a mean SOB. He just the meanest kid. He just, for no reason in particular, he was just hateful to everyone, kids and students and teachers and just everybody. He would do things like throw a basketball at your head just for fun. No reason in particular, just because you were walking by. One year he cracked my tooth, like that one right there, with a freaking basketball. I think he was holding it. He just whacked me in the chin with it. He got expelled a bunch of times, and eventually his dad got a divorce, and he and his dad moved away, and never saw him again. Like years went by, I never saw him again. I never liked Danny. I always carried around angry feelings about that guy. And about my senior year in high school, I made a friend who had been Danny's stepbrother, and he kind of filled me in on Danny's life situation. It was this guy's mom that he had divorced. Danny had moved away. Danny's father, it turns out, was like an abusive, hateful alcoholic, just physically, emotionally abusive. And that's what Danny's reality was in 7th and 8th grade, and probably up until then. And I suddenly understood a lot more about this guy that I've been carrying all this anger around about, who had done these things. He was a little terrorist, right? And he had done mean stuff. Now, his situation at home didn't make it okay for him to do those things, but now I had some empathy because, I never once wondered if I was loved by my parent. I always knew my mother loved me. Danny, he didn't know that. So how could I not feel that? Even now, I think about the stuff he went through and I feel empathy for the guy. Now, doesn't mean I have to like him. Doesn't mean I have to reach out to him. Doesn't mean that what he did was okay. But you know what? Now he's no longer that caricature in my mind. Now he's no longer that thing he did. He's a person. He's a person who's suffering. I don't have to do anything to change it. But now I've just jailbroke him. You see what I did there? I took him out of the hate box and I brought him over into humanity. That's step one. Step two is once you get into that sense of humanity with someone, you can put them in that space. Maybe whoever did whatever they did to you, you know a little bit about. If not, we'll work around that in a second too. But sometimes, most of the time, we know a little bit about the person, enough to know maybe why they're broken. Well, if you can get that little bit of empathy, you can go, oh, I know that about them. Then maybe you can kind of pull them over a little bit closer to the humanity side of the line instead of the monster side of the line, okay? Break out that caricature you have. They're no longer just the thing they did, they're also a person, a broken person. And broken people, well, they do mean things and they don't apologize for them. So now you see, we've moved them into another box. Once you get them there, you can take that emotion you feel about it, that understanding of what that must be like, that empathy, and turn it into action and let go of the hot coal. See, what you have to do is understand that there's some pain there. And that, yeah, they did horrible stuff, but it was never about you. It was about the fact that they were broken and hurting and lashing out like an animal in pain. Doesn't mean you have to like them. Doesn't mean you forgive them necessarily for everything they did. Doesn't mean you have to call them up on the phone, hang out with them, appreciate them, have anything to do with them, ever speak to them again. Because it doesn't have anything to do with you. Neither did what they did to you. It had nothing to do with you. It only had something to do with them. And you're not forgiving them for them. You're forgiving them for you. You're forgiving them so you can stop clutching that hot coal of anger that does you no good. Just drop it. Drop the pain. Don't carry it anymore. You don't need it. It doesn't serve you. There's no good in it. No good in it at all. Connect with the empathy. Understand a little about their story. And then use that to drop it. Jailbreak them from the caricature. Now, if you don't know anything about the person who hurt you, it's just some random jerk, some random horrible person, project. Imagine to yourself, sit. If you meditate, this is a great thing to do, meditating, sit and imagine to yourself what you would have to go through to become a person like that. What would have had to have happened to you in your life to become a person like that? You've seen a little baby, right? Those little baby, you look in their eyes, a little brand new baby, and they got that look where that soul is right there. They're a perfect little soul, untainted. There's no evil, no viciousness. It's just beauty, right? That's our starting spot. The person who hurt you, that was their starting spot. What had to have happened to that person to turn them into the person that did that to you? Let your imagination run wild. Just let it run wild. Doesn't make what they did okay. Doesn't mean anything other than you understand that they're broken. But if you can get to that point, you can jailbreak them from the caricature, because that's the thing that's keeping you locked in. When you get to that, a little bit of empathy, you get a little closer to the forgiving or forgetting thing. If you can't get to forgive, get to let go. Think of it as let go. Because you're carrying around something horrible they handed to you that you shouldn't have to carry around. You got this. Work on it. If it doesn't click right away, keep doing it. Listen to this video again if you need to. But leave me some comments in the box below if you have successes. I want to hear about that. I've had good successes in really traumatic stuff. Maybe I'll talk about that another time. Get out there and do the work. You deserve it. That pain's not yours to carry. Drop the hot coal and move forward.